Tae-ho Kim walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers. His simple black suit looked plain next to the strange and colorful beings around him. Some aliens floated in the air like glowing clouds. Others had 6 arms and crystal, skin that sparkled under the lights. A few looked like giant insects with wings that buzzed softly. The chamber was huge. It could hold 10 football stadiums inside. The ceiling stretched so high that Tae-ho could barely see it. Thousands of seats filled the space in perfect circles. Each seat was different, made for the alien that would sit there. Some were filled with water for fish-like beings. Others glowed with heat for creatures that needed warmth. Tae-ho had never seen anything like this before. No human had. He was the first of his kind to stand in this place. The weight of that fact pressed down on his shoulders like a heavy coat. Chancellor Vexithari floated above everyone else. She had no solid body. Instead, she was made of light that changed colors when she spoke. Her voice came from everywhere at once, speaking in a language that somehow everyone could understand. Today marks a special moment in galactic history, Vexithari said. Her light pulsed with each word. For the first time in 3,000 years, we invite a new species to join our great council without the usual waiting period. The aliens around Tae-ho made various sounds. Some clicked their tongues. Others hummed deep notes. A few flashed different colors. He realized they were all showing surprise and interest. Tae-ho stood in the center of the chamber. A single light shone down on him. Everyone was looking at him, and he could feel their eyes, sensors, and whatever other ways they used to see. Some had eyes like his. Others had strange devices that beeped and glowed as they studied him. Humans, Vexithari continued, have shown remarkable progress in just 50 years since they learned to travel between stars. They have built cities on 17 different worlds. They have survived on planets that we thought were too dangerous for life. Korthal, a being that looked like a mountain with arms, leaned forward in his massive seat. His voice rumbled like thunder when he spoke. The reports are indeed strange. These humans adapt to any world they find. They do not ask for help. They do not follow the usual patterns. An insect-like creature named Zixara clicked her mandibles together. Our observers report that humans solve problems in ways we have never seen. They use broken things to fix other broken things. They make tools from materials that should not work together. Tae-ho listened to them talk about his people like they were studying animals in a zoo. He tried to stay calm, but his hands felt sweaty inside his gloves. Earth had prepared him for this moment for 2 years. He had studied every species in the council. He knew their languages, their customs, their history. But standing here now, he felt very small. The humans also show something else, said a floating jellyfish-like being called Erlin. Her voice sounded like music. They work together without a clear leader giving orders. They make decisions as groups. They share resources freely with each other. This is why, Vexithari said, her light growing brighter, the council has decided to offer humanity immediate Tier 2 galactic citizenship. The chamber erupted in sounds. Some aliens cheered with voices like singing birds. Others made rumbling noises deep in their chests. The water-dwelling creatures splashed in their tanks. Tejo had studied enough to know that this was very rare. Most species waited hundreds of years for such an offer. With this citizenship, Vexithari explained, humans would receive advanced, faster-than-light travel technology. You would gain access to the Galactic Trade Network, connecting you to thousands of worlds. You would have protection under council, law and support from our combined military forces. Tejo's heart beat faster. This was everything Earth had dreamed of when they first learned they were not alone in the universe. Advanced technology that would let them travel to distant galaxies. Trade that would bring wealth beyond imagination. Protection from the dangers that lurked in dark space. You would also, Vexithari continued, receive guidance from species who have existed for millions of years. We would share our knowledge of science, philosophy, and governance. Your people would learn the proper ways to build a galactic civilization. The proper ways. Those words stuck in Tejo's mind like a thorn. He thought about the reports he had read during his journey here. Reports about species who had joined the council and slowly stopped creating new things. Species who now asked permission before trying anything new. Species who had traded their unique cultures for the safety of following rules made by others. Of course, added Korthal, you would need to follow council protocols. Your expansion would be regulated to prevent conflicts. Your technology development would be supervised to ensure safety. Your government would need to align with council standards. More words that felt heavy to Tejo. Regulated, supervised, aligned. He thought about the colonies he had visited on his way here. Human farmers growing food on worlds that the council said were too cold. Human engineers building cities in places the council said were too dangerous. Human children playing games that led to discoveries that amazed the alien observers. This offer, Vexithari said, has never been refused in recorded galactic history. Every species recognizes the benefits of joining our great civilization. The chamber fell silent. All eyes, sensors, and attention focused on Tejo. He could hear his own breathing in the quiet. His heartbeat sounded loud in his ears. The weight of speaking for all humanity pressed down on him. He thought about Earth, green and blue and beautiful. He thought about the colonies where humans were learning to live on ice worlds and desert planets and floating cities above gas giants. He thought about the children he had met who asked why about everything and what if about everything else. Tejo cleared his throat. The sound carried throughout the massive chamber through hidden speakers. When he spoke, his words were translated instantly into hundreds of languages. Honored Chancellor, respected representatives of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice steady despite his nervousness. The United Earth Federation is deeply grateful for this unprecedented offer. We recognize the great honor you have shown us. He paused. In that pause, he could feel the expectation of nearly 1,000 alien beings. They all waited for the words that every species had spoken before. We accept. Instead, Tae-ho said something that had never been heard in these chambers before. However, after careful consideration, the United Earth Federation respectfully declines this generous offer. The silence that followed was complete. Not a single being moved or made a sound. The very air seemed to stop flowing. Even the soft hums and beeps of alien technology went quiet. Then the chamber exploded. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On research stations, trading posts, and colony worlds, beings stopped what they were doing to listen to the impossible report. Humans had said no to the Galactic Council. On the crystal world of Veltar, Hee-Jin Park was working late in her laboratory. She wore a simple white coat over her regular clothes, nothing fancy or impressive. Around her, strange machines hummed and beeped as they studied dark matter. The stuff that held galaxies together but no one could see or touch. "Dr. Park," called her assistant, a tall blue alien named Feldar. His voice shook with excitement. "You must see this news report." Hee-Jin looked up from her work. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her glasses reflected the glow from her computer screens. She had been on Veltar for 2 years, working with alien scientists who were amazed by her different way of thinking. The news report showed Tae-ho Kim standing in the council chambers. Hee-Jin watched as he spoke the words that shocked the galaxy. She saw the aliens around him react with confusion and anger. Some of them looked like they might faint. This is impossible," Feldar said. His blue skin had turned pale. "No species has ever refused council membership. The benefits are too great. The protection too important." Hye-Jin turned off the news and went back to her work. "Maybe that's the problem," she said quietly. "What do you mean?" Feldar asked. "When you always get help, you stop learning how to help yourself," Hye-Jin said. She pointed at her computer screen, which showed a new way to collect dark matter. "I solved this problem because I didn't know the council said it was impossible. If I had asked for permission first, they would have told me not to try." Feldar stared at her. Other alien researchers in the lab had stopped their work to listen. They all looked confused and worried. Across the galaxy, on a patrol ship near the Outer Rim, Captain Bo-Ram Lee was dealing with a different kind of problem. Her ship, the Brave Star, was small compared to council vessels. It had no fancy weapons or shields, but it was fast and smart, built by human engineers who didn't follow council blueprints. "Captain," called her communications officer, a young human man named Jin Woo. "We're getting a distress call from Mining Station 7. Bo-Ram looked at her mixed crew. Half were human, half were aliens who had chosen to serve with humans to learn their ways. They worked together better than most council crews, she thought. No one worried about rank or protocol when there was work to do. "What's the situation?" she asked. "Phylaxian pirates," Jin Woo reported. "3 ships attacking the mining station. The miners are requesting immediate assistance." Bo-Ram's alien crew members looked nervous. Phylaxian pirates were known across the galaxy for their cruelty. Their ships were fast and heavily armed. Council protocols said to call for backup when facing such threats. "Set course for the station," Boram ordered. Maximum speed. Captain, said her second-in-command, a worried-looking alien named Tolvek. Should we not call for council support? The pirates have superior firepower. Boram smiled. Let's see what the miners are doing first. When they arrived at the mining station, Boram expected to find a battle. Instead, she found something strange. The 3 pirate ships were floating dead in space. The mining station was intact, with small repair ships buzzing around fixing minor damage. "This is Mining Station 7, came a voice over the radio. It sounded calm and cheerful. Thanks for coming, but we've got things handled here. Boram stared at her screen. How did you defeat 3 pirate ships? Oh, we didn't defeat them, the voice replied. We just convinced them to stop fighting. Want to come aboard for some coffee? We've got some injured pirates here who could use medical attention. When Boram and her crew boarded the station, they found something that amazed the alien crew members. The miners had not destroyed the pirate ships. Instead, they had used their mining equipment in clever ways. Gravity manipulators designed to move asteroids had grabbed the pirate ships and held them still. Cutting lasers meant for rocks had carefully disabled their weapons without hurting anyone inside. The station manager was a middle-aged human woman named Sun He. She wore dirty work clothes and had grease under her fingernails. She looked nothing like a military commander, but she had outsmarted 3 pirate captains. The trick, Sun He explained to the amazed aliens, was not to fight them the way they expected. They came looking for a battle, so we gave them a puzzle instead. In one of the station's medical bays, human doctors were treating injured pirates. The pirates looked confused and ashamed. One of them, a large creature with 4 arms and sharp teeth, spoke to Boram. Your people fight strangely, he said. We expected violence and anger. Instead, they offered us food and medicine. Why do they help those who attacked them? Boram thought about it. Because that's how you stop someone from wanting to attack you again. Meanwhile, on Luna Command near Earth, Admiral Ji-Won Choi was reading reports that worried her. She sat in her office, looking out at the blue and white marble that was Earth. Her desk was covered with data tablets and computer screens showing information from across human space. The reports all said the same thing. Other alien species were asking questions they had never asked before. The aquatic depths dwellers of Oceanus had stopped requesting council approval for their territorial expansions. The desert wanderers of Eridus were developing new technologies. Without submitting them for council review, Admiral, said her aide, a young human named Kyung-Soo, we're getting requests from 17 different species. They want to send observers to our colonies. What kind of observers? Ji-Won asked. Scientists, engineers, teachers. They say they want to study human problem-solving methods. Kyung-Soo looked puzzled. Some of them are from very advanced civilizations. Why would they want to learn from us? Ji-Won turned to look at another report on her desk. It was from Dr. Min-Ho Yang, Earth's best expert on alien biology. He was studying the aliens who had been living with humans for the past few years. The report said something interesting. The alien observers were changing. They had started to act more like humans, Instead of following strict protocols, they were improvising. Instead of asking for permission, they were trying new things. Instead of waiting for orders, they were solving problems on their own. Dr. Yang thinks we might be accidentally teaching them something the council doesn't want them to learn, Jiwon said to herself. What's that, Admiral? Kyung-soo asked. Independence. Far across the galaxy, in the great libraries of the academics. Collective ancient scholars were having emergency meetings. They had been studying galactic civilization for thousands of years. They had written the rules that every species followed. Now, for the first time, they were confused. Scholar Prime. Velnathi floated in his crystal chamber, surrounded by data streams that showed information from across the galaxy. His logical mind, trained over centuries, could not understand what was happening. The humans have created a cascade effect, he reported to his fellow scholars. Their refusal to join the council has caused other species to question their own membership. This is unprecedented, said Scholar Yixara. Galactic stability depends on all species following the same basic principles. If every species begins to act independently, chaos, finished Scholar Prime Velnathi. Complete chaos. But in human space, something different was happening. It didn't look like chaos at all. It looked like growth. 3 months after the shocking refusal, the Galactic Council made a decision. They would send investigation teams to human space. They needed to understand how humans were succeeding without council guidance. More importantly, they needed to understand why other species were beginning to copy human methods. The largest investigation team landed on New Jeju, a farming world that humans had built in just 10 years. The planet had been marked in council records as unsuitable for civilization. Too many storms, they said, too unstable, with shifting continents and unpredictable weather. The mathematics clearly showed that no intelligent species could build a stable society there. Yet as the council ships landed, they could see green fields stretching to the horizon. Cities with gleaming towers rose from valleys that should have been empty wastelands. The air smelled of growing things and carried the sounds of children playing. Research Director Yoon Seo-han met them at the spaceport. She was a small woman with short gray hair and hands stained with soil. She wore simple farmer's clothes and boots caked with mud. To the alien investigators, she looked nothing like the leader of a successful colony. "Welcome to New Jeju," she said with a warm smile. "I hope you brought your appetites. We're having a harvest festival this week." The lead investigator was Velnathi of the Logic-Based Collective. His crystalline body reflected the strange sunlight of New Jeju as he scanned the landscape with sensors that never blinked. "This world should not support your population level," he stated. "Our calculations show that the geological instability should make large-scale agriculture impossible." Yunseo laughed. "That's what we thought too at first. Then we realized the calculations were based on trying to fight the planet instead of working with it." She led them through the colony. The alien investigators expected to find evidence of advanced technology, secret council support, or dangerous experiments. Instead, they found something that puzzled them completely. Humans succeeding through what they called common sense. Engineer Dong-hyun Park showed them the fusion reactor that powered the main city. Velnathi's sensors immediately detected anomalies. The reactor used parts that came from 3 different manufacturers. Some components were meant for spacecraft, others for mining equipment. According to Council engineering standards, the mixture should have caused catastrophic failure. This design violates 17 safety protocols, Velnathi observed. How has it not exploded? Dong-hyun scratched his head and grinned. Well, we didn't know about those protocols when we built it. We just used what worked. Turns out, when you combine the cooling system from a mining laser with the containment field from a ship engine, you get 30% better efficiency. But the theoretical framework, Velnathi began. Theories are nice, Dong-hyun said, but they don't feed families or keep the lights on. Sometimes you just have to try things and see what happens. The alien investigators recorded everything, but they could not understand what they were seeing. These humans were breaking rules that had been established by species with millions of years of experience, yet somehow their violations of established science were producing better results than proper methods. Agricultural specialist Soo-jin Kim showed them the farms that fed the entire colony. The investigators expected to see the standard council approach: controlled environments, carefully monitored growth conditions, and crops approved by the Galactic Agricultural Board. Instead, they found fields that looked wild and chaotic. Different, plants grew mixed together in patterns that made no sense. Some areas were flooded while others were dry. It looked like confusion, but the yield numbers were impossible to argue with. How do you achieve such high production with these disorganized methods? Asked Zixara, the insect-like investigator. Soo-jin knelt down and picked up a handful of soil. The planet's weather changes fast, so we plant crops that help each other. When the storms come, the deep-rooted plants hold the soil while the tall ones break the wind. When it's dry, some plants shade others. When it floods, some plants clean the water for the rest. But this requires constant adaptation. Zixara clicked her mandibles nervously. How do you make decisions quickly enough without proper authority? Chains? Every farmer makes their own decisions, Soo-jin said simply. We all know our own fields best. This statement caused great distress among the investigators. In council space, agricultural decisions were made by committees of experts who studied data for months before approving changes. The idea that individual farmers could make such decisions without supervision seemed dangerous and chaotic. The most disturbing discovery came at the colony school. Teacher Jae-sung Lee welcomed the investigators to observe human education methods. The alien investigators expected to see students learning established facts and proper procedures. Instead, they found something that challenged their understanding of how young minds should be trained. Human children were encouraged to ask questions that had no approved answers. They were given problems to solve without being taught the correct methods first. They were allowed to fail, learn from mistakes, and try again. This approach seems highly inefficient, observed Velnathi. Young minds should be filled with established knowledge before they attempt original thinking. Jae-sung smiled and pointed to a group of 8-year-old children who were building something with scraps of metal and wire. Ha-yun! Could you show our guests what you're working on? A small girl with pigtails looked up from her project. Her hands were dirty, and her clothes had grease stains. She held up a device that looked like a toy, but hummed with energy. I'm trying to make the lights in our classroom work better, Ha-Yun said. They flicker when it's stormy, and it makes it hard to read. So I thought maybe if I could store some extra power? Velnathi's sensors detected sophisticated energy patterns coming from the child's crude device. The principles were sound, but the execution was completely outside established engineering practices. This is a power coupling device, Velnathi said, his voice filled with something like shock. It would take our engineers months to design such a system. Ha-Un looked confused. It's not that hard. You just have to think about what the electricity wants to do, and then help it do that better. What does electricity want to do? Asked another investigator, a floating gas being named Lin. Move around and make things work, Ha-Un said, as if this was obvious. But sometimes it gets stuck or goes the wrong way. So you just have to give it better paths. The investigators spent the rest of the day watching human children casually solve problems that would challenge trained scientists. A 10-year-old boy named Min Jun designed a more efficient water filter while playing with sand and stones. A 12-year-old girl named Subin created a communication device that could work during electromagnetic storms by accident while trying to talk to her friend on the other side of the continent. That evening, the investigation team held an emergency meeting in their ship. They had seen things that should not be possible. Humans were succeeding through methods that violated everything the Council had learned about proper civilization. They operate without central planning, reported Velnathi. Individual humans make decisions that should require committee approval. Their children are taught to question established knowledge, added Zixara. This should produce confusion and conflict, yet their society remains stable. Most disturbing, said Erlin. They seem to thrive on uncertainty. Where other species would request guidance, humans appear to view challenges as opportunities for growth. The investigators realized they were witnessing something that threatened the very foundation of galactic civilization. The Council system was based on the idea that older, wiser species should guide younger ones. That proper procedures, established over millions of years, were superior to improvisation and experimentation. But here were humans, the youngest spacefaring species in the galaxy, succeeding through methods that rejected everything the Council taught. Worse, they seemed happier and more prosperous than many species that had followed Council guidance for millennia. As their ship prepared to leave New Jeju, the investigators watched human children playing in the fields below. The children were laughing and running, creating games with rules that changed as they played. They were learning and growing and becoming something new with every passing moment. For the first time in their long lives, the ancient investigators wondered if maybe, just maybe, the Council had been wrong about how civilizations should develop. 6 months after the investigation teams returned to Council space, everything began to change. The reports they filed were read by scholars, scientists, and leaders across 1,000 worlds. The reports raised questions that had never been asked. Before, Commander Wu Jin Nam stood on the bridge of the human vessel Determination. The ship was not large or impressive compared to Council warships. It had no weapons of mass destruction, no shields that could stop asteroid impacts. But it had something else. A crew that worked together in ways that amazed their alien guests. "Commander," called his communications officer, a young woman named Yoon-ji. "We're receiving a priority message from the Council investigation ship. Harmony of understanding. They're requesting emergency assistance." Wu Jin looked at the tactical display. The Council ship was caught in a stellar storm, one of those space weather events that could tear a ship apart with magnetic fields and radiation. Council protocols required ships to maintain safe distances from such storms and wait for specialized rescue vessels. "How long until Council rescue ships arrive?" Wu Jin asked. 14 hours, Yoon-ji replied. "The storm will destroy their ship in less than 6. The alien observers on the bridge looked nervous. There were 5 of them, scientists and diplomats who had asked to travel with humans to study their methods. They expected Wu Jin to follow proper procedures, contact Council authorities, wait for orders, and avoid unauthorized action. Instead, Wu Jin turned to his crew. "Ideas?" "We could modify our deflector array," suggested Chief Engineer Kyung Min. "Use it to create a corridor through the storm." "That's never been tried before," worried Zixthar, one of the alien observers. "The deflector array is not designed for that purpose." "Neither was Ha-Un's power coupling," Wu Jin said with a smile. "But it worked fine. Let's see what we can do." What followed amazed the alien observers. The human crew did not ask for permission or consult technical manuals. Instead, they worked together to solve the problem in real time. The navigator plotted a course through the calmest parts of the storm. The engineer rerouted power systems to boost the deflectors. The science officer calculated magnetic field fluctuations, while the medical officer prepared for possible radiation. "Exposure! This is highly irregular," protested Velnathi, the crystalline investigator who had joined them after his experience on New Jeju. "Proper procedure requires authorization from—" "The people in that ship will be dead before proper." "Procedure can save them," interrupted Pilot So Young. She was already adjusting course toward the storm. "Sometimes you have to choose between being right and being helpful." The determination plunged into the stellar storm. The alien observers watched in terror as radiation alarms screamed and the ship shook like a toy in a child's hand. But the human crew remained calm, making constant adjustments and adaptations as conditions changed. "Deflector array at maximum," Kyung Min reported. "Creating a wake in the magnetic field." "I see them," So Young called out. "The Council ship is listing badly. Their engines are offline." Wu Jin made a decision that violated every rule of space. "Safety. Lock onto them with our tractor beam. We're pulling them out." "Commander," Velnathi's voice was filled with alarm. "Your ship is not designed to tow another vessel through a stellar storm. The stress could destroy both ships." "Maybe," Wu Jin agreed, "but doing nothing will definitely destroy one ship. I prefer maybe." The rescue took 3 hours. 3 hours of jury-rigged solutions, improvised repairs, and constant adaptation to changing conditions. The alien observers watched humans work in ways they had never seen before. No one waited for orders. Everyone contributed ideas. When one solution failed, they immediately tried another. When both ships finally emerged from the storm, the alien observers were quiet for a long time. They had watched humans violate every principle of proper space operations. They had also watched humans save lives that council procedures would have written off as acceptable losses. Dr. Shung Hwan Oh was a human historian who had spent years studying galactic civilization. He welcomed the alien observers to his laboratory, aboard the Determination. His small workspace was filled with books, data tablets, and artifacts from 100 different worlds. "You seem troubled by what you have witnessed," he said to Velnathi and the other aliens. "Perhaps I can help you understand why humans behave differently. Your species operates without proper authority structures," Velnathi stated. "This should produce chaos and conflict, yet you achieve remarkable results." Sung Hwan smiled and pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's history. "Every species has a story that shapes how they see the universe. Our story is different from yours." The display showed images of Earth through the ages. Ice-covered continents, then melted and covered them again. Volcanoes exploded and changed the climate. Asteroids struck and filled the sky with dust. Through it all, early humans adapted and survived. Other species developed their civilizations under stable conditions, Xionghuan explained. They had time to build proper hierarchies and establish correct procedures. They could afford to move slowly and carefully. The display showed human history, wars, disasters, famines, and plagues. Each crisis was followed by innovation, adaptation, and growth. Humans never had that luxury, Sheng Huan continued. We evolved on a planet that kept trying to kill us. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, climate changes. Our ancestors survived by learning to adapt quickly and work together without waiting for permission. But this should have made your species chaotic and unstable, protested Erlin, the floating gas being. Or, Sheng Huan suggested, it taught us that survival depends on thinking for ourselves. When the volcano explodes, you don't have time to form a committee. When the flood comes, you don't wait for authorization to build a boat. You figure out what needs to be done, and you do it. The alien observers studied the historical data with growing amazement. Human civilization had faced more disasters and challenges than any other known species. Instead of being destroyed by these challenges, humans had used them to become stronger and more adaptable. This explains your educational methods, Velnathi said slowly. You teach your children to solve problems because problem-solving is essential for survival. Every human is trained from childhood to think independently, Sheng Huan confirmed. We can't afford to have citizens who only follow orders. We need citizens who can adapt to new situations and create solutions that no one has thought of before. Captain Yujin Ko joined the discussion from the bridge. She had been listening to the conversation while monitoring ship operations. The Yakubi Council system works well for species that live in stable conditions, she said. But stability is rare in the universe. Sooner or later, every civilization faces unexpected challenges. And when that happens, Sheng Huan added, you need people who know how to think outside the rules. The alien observers realized they were learning something that would change their understanding of galactic civilization. The Council had spent millions of years building a system designed for stability and order. It worked well when conditions remained predictable. But the universe was not predictable. Stars exploded, planets shifted, and new challenges appeared constantly. The Council system taught species to follow established procedures and wait for guidance from higher authorities. This created stable societies, but it also created societies that could not adapt quickly to new situations. Humans had developed differently. Their entire civilization was built around the assumption that change was constant and adaptation was necessary. They taught their children to question everything, to experiment with new ideas, and to take responsibility for solving problems without waiting for permission. "This is why you refused council membership," Velnathi said with sudden understanding. "Joining the council would require you to abandon the very traits that make you successful. The council offers security in exchange for independence," Eugene confirmed. "For most species, that's a good trade. For humans, well, we've learned that security without independence is just another kind of prison." As the Determination continued its journey through space, the alien observers began to understand something that terrified and excited them in equal measure. They were witnessing the emergence of a completely different way of organizing civilization, a way that prioritized adaptation over stability, innovation over tradition, and individual thinking over collective conformity. It was a way that might transform the entire galaxy. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Chancellor Vexathari's light pulsed with angry red colors as she floated above the assembled representatives. The great chamber buzzed with nervous energy from nearly 1,000 different species. "The reports from our investigation teams are deeply concerning," Vexathari announced. Her voice carried to every corner of the massive space. "The human influence is spreading beyond their borders. Multiple species are beginning to question established procedures." Korthal, the mountain-like Titan representative, slammed his massive fist on his podium. The sound echoed through the chamber like thunder. 17 species have reduced their requests for council guidance by more than 50% in the past 6 months. This cannot be allowed to continue. The chamber erupted in discussions. Some representatives clicked, hummed, or flashed lights in agreement. Others remained silent, which was unusual. In the past, any threat to council authority would have brought universal condemnation. "The humans are like a virus," declared Zarkon of the warrior caste. His 4 arms gestured dramatically as he spoke. "They spread their dangerous ideas of independence wherever they go. We must take action before they corrupt the entire galactic order." But then something unprecedented happened. Representative Zilnara of the Peaceful Collective rose from her seat. Her people had been members of the council for over 2 million years. They were known for their absolute loyalty to established procedures. "Perhaps," Zilnara said in her soft, musical voice, "the humans have shown us something we needed to see." The chamber fell silent. This was not the kind of statement anyone expected from the Peaceful Collective. "For 2 million years," Zilnara continued, "my people have followed council guidance in all matters. We have prospered under your protection, but we have also stagnated. We have created nothing new in 1,000,000 years. We have solved no problems that we did not ask permission to solve first. Order and stability are the foundations of civilization, Vexthari responded, her light flickering with uncertainty. Innovation without guidance leads to chaos. Does it? Zilnara asked. The humans show us otherwise. They innovate constantly, yet their societies remain stable. They solve problems quickly, yet they do not descend into conflict. Perhaps we have confused rigidity with stability. More representatives began to speak. Ambassador Trelvan of the Otviev Merchant Federation stood up, his crystalline form reflecting the chamber lights. My people have been trading with humans for the past year. Their methods are refreshing. They negotiate as equals, not as junior species seeking guidance. They create solutions that benefit everyone, not just those with higher authority. This is precisely the problem, Korthal rumbled. The humans do not recognize proper authority. They treat all species as equals, regardless of age or experience. And, perhaps, Trelvan replied quietly, that is not a problem. Perhaps that is wisdom. The debate raged for hours. Half the council demanded immediate action to contain human influence. They proposed trade restrictions, travel limitations, and even military intervention if necessary. The other half urged caution, suggesting that the humans might have valuable lessons to teach. Meanwhile, in human space, Admiral Ji Wan Choi was dealing with an unprecedented situation. Her office on Luna Command was crowded with requests from alien species seeking permission to establish independent relations with humanity. Admiral, reported her aide Kyung-soo, we've received formal withdrawal notifications from the Peaceful, Collective, the Desert Wanderers, and the Aquatic Depths Dwellers. They're leaving the council and requesting to join something they're calling the Independent Alliance. Jiwon rubbed her temples. This was not what Earth had intended when they refused council membership. They had simply wanted to maintain their independence, not cause a galactic civil war. What about the species that are staying with the council? She asked. About half are remaining loyal, Kyung-soo replied. But even some of those are requesting permission to study human methods. The requests for cultural exchange programs have increased by 3,000%. Dr. Yunhai Sim was experiencing the crisis firsthand. She had been working on a council research station for 2 years, studying advanced physics alongside some of the galaxy's most brilliant minds. Now, the station was splitting into 2 groups. Those who supported the traditional council approach, and those who wanted to try human-style independent research. Dr. Sim called her colleague, a 6-armed insectoid named Clickstar. Could you help us understand this equation? We have been working on it for 6 months with no progress. Eun-hai looked at the holographic display showing a complex mathematical problem. It dealt with quantum mechanics and energy transfer, the kind of theoretical physics that usually took teams of specialists years to solve. What's the goal? She asked. To find a way to stabilize quantum energy fluctuations in zero-gravity environments, Clickstar explained. The mathematics are incredibly complex. Our best computers estimate it will take another 5 years of calculation to find a solution. Anhae studied the problem for a few minutes. Then she asked a question that made the alien scientists uncomfortable. What if we're thinking about this wrong? What do you mean? Asked another scientist, a floating energy being named Luxara. You're trying to eliminate the fluctuations, Yunhae said. But what if instead of fighting them, we use them? Quantum fluctuations contain energy. Maybe we can harvest that energy instead of trying to stop it. The alien scientists looked shocked. But the established theories clearly state that quantum fluctuations must be minimized for stable energy production, Clickstar protested. Established. By who? Yunhae asked. And when? And under what conditions? She pulled up a new set of calculations, approaching the problem from a completely different angle. Instead of trying to eliminate quantum fluctuations, she designed a system that would capture and redirect them. This violates fundamental principles, Luxara whispered. Does it? Yunhae asked. Or does it just violate assumptions we've been making without questioning them? 3 hours later, Yunhai's approach had produced a working solution. The alien scientists stared at the results in amazement. Not only did the new method work, it was more efficient than anything they had ever achieved using traditional approaches. How did you see this when we could not? Clickstar asked. Because I didn't know it was impossible, Yunhae replied. You've been thinking inside a box that someone else built. I didn't know the box existed. Word of Yunhai's breakthrough spread quickly through the research station and beyond. Within days, other research teams were trying similar approaches, questioning basic assumptions, ignoring established limitations, and looking for new ways to solve old problems. The results were remarkable. Scientific problems that had puzzled galactic civilization for centuries were solved in weeks. Technologies that had been theoretical for millennia suddenly became practical. But the success came with a price. The galaxy was dividing into two camps, those who embraced the human approach of independent thinking and those who clung to the traditional council system of centralized authority. On the council world of Centralis, emergency meetings continued around the clock. Species that had been allies for millions of years now viewed each other with suspicion. Ancient treaties were being questioned. Long-established trade agreements were being renegotiated. The humans have destroyed galactic unity, Chancellor Vexthari declared during one heated session. In less than 1 year, they have undone millions of years of progress toward a stable, ordered civilization. But Representative Zilnara offered a different perspective. Perhaps, she said quietly, unity that depends on suppressing independent thought is not true unity at all. Perhaps what the humans have shown us is the difference between cooperation and control. The galaxy stood at a crossroads. For the first time in recorded history, there was no single authority that all species recognized. The Great Galactic Council, which had maintained order for millions of years, was fracturing. Some species chose security and remained with the traditional council system. Others chose freedom and joined the growing independent alliance. Many found themselves caught in between, unsure which path would lead to a better future. But in human space, something new was being born. Representatives from dozens of species were gathering to discuss a radical idea. What if a galactic civilization could be built on cooperation between equals rather than submission to higher authority? What if the humans were right, and the galaxy was ready for something completely different? 1 year had passed since Tae-ho Kim spoke the words that changed the galaxy. Now he stood in a very different chamber, watching representatives from over 200 species work together in ways that would have seemed impossible just months before. The Independent Alliance headquarters on the world of New Harmony was nothing like the old council chambers. There was no single elevated throne where one being ruled over others. Instead, circular tables filled the space, each hosting mixed groups of different species working on shared problems. The quarterly cooperation report, announced Director Sang-Min Park, a middle-aged human woman who had volunteered to help coordinate the Alliance's activities. 237 species now participating in voluntary cooperation agreements. 0 conflicts requiring external intervention. 43 major scientific breakthroughs achieved through collaborative research. Tae-ho smiled as he watched the bustling activity around him. At one table, human engineers worked with crystalline mathematicians to design better spacecraft engines. At another, aquatic beings shared water purification techniques with desert dwellers. Everywhere he looked, he saw beings from different worlds sharing knowledge freely, without permission or oversight. Ambassador Kim, called a familiar voice. Velnathi, the crystalline investigator who had once studied human colonies with suspicion, approached with what seemed like excitement. His usually logical demeanor had changed over the past year. Velnathi, Tae-ho greeted his old acquaintance. How goes the research project? Remarkably well, Velnathi replied. Our joint study with human scientists has produced results that exceed all expectations. When we combine our computational abilities with human intuitive thinking, we solve problems neither of us could handle alone. This was the miracle of the Independent Alliance. Instead of trying to force all species into the same mold, they had learned to use their differences as strengths, human creativity combined with alien logic, ancient wisdom mixed with youthful innovation, stability balanced with adaptation. Captain Hyun-woo Kim commanded the Alliance vessel Unity's Dream, the Eye, first truly integrated ship in galactic history. His crew included beings from 17 different species, each contributing their unique abilities to the ship's mission of exploration and assistance. Captain, called his communications officer, a musical being named Lyravan, whose songs could transmit data across vast distances. We're receiving a distress call from the Kepler system. A colony ship is stranded near a neutron star. Which species? Asked Navigation Officer Zekthar, a being who could calculate hyperspace routes in his head. Mixed colony, Lyravan replied. Humans, peaceful collective members, and desert wanderers working together to establish a new settlement. Hyun-woo nodded. Mixed colonies were becoming common in Alliance space. Species that had never interacted before were now building communities together, learning from each other's strengths and supporting each other's weaknesses. Set course for Kepler, he ordered. "Maximum speed." The rescue operation showcased everything. The Alliance had learned about cooperation. The ship's engineer, a human named So-Jin, worked with Kliktar, an insectoid specialist in energy systems, to boost their engines beyond normal capacity. The medical bay was staffed by Dr. Min-Soo, a human physician, working alongside healer Vashara, whose plant-like biology allowed her to synthesize medicines from basic compounds. When they reached the stranded colony ship, they found it caught in the gravitational field of the neutron star, its engines failing under the massive stress. Traditional Council protocols would have required calling for specialized rescue vessels and waiting for proper authorization. Instead, the crew of the Unity's Dream did what humans had taught them. They improvised. "The gravitational field is too strong for our tractor beams," reported engineer So-Jin. "But if we can create a resonance pattern with their hull frequency..." "I can calculate the precise harmonic needed," offered Zekthar. "And I can modulate our engines to produce that frequency," added Kliktar. Working together, they created a solution that no single species could have achieved alone. The rescue was completed in 4 hours, saving 3,000 colonists who represented the future of interspecies cooperation. Meanwhile, Dr. Mei Rian was making discoveries that would reshape how the galaxy understood civilization itself. Her research station, New Horizons, orbited a star on the border between Alliance and Council space. Her team included the most diverse group of researchers ever assembled. "The data is conclusive," she announced during a broadcast to both Alliance and Council worlds. "Civilizations that encourage independent thinking and voluntary cooperation show consistently higher rates of innovation, problem-solving, and social stability than those that rely primarily on hierarchical authority." Her research had studied hundreds of species over thousands of years. The pattern was clear. Societies that trusted their members to think independently and make their own decisions were more adaptable, more creative, and ultimately more successful than those that required central approval for all major decisions. "This doesn't mean authority and structure are bad," Dr. Ahn explained to her mixed audience. "It means the best societies use authority to enable independence, not replace it. They create structures that help individuals succeed, not structures that control how individuals think." The broadcast was watched by billions of beings across the galaxy. In Council space, it sparked debates that had been unthinkable just a year before. In Alliance space, it confirmed what many had already begun to suspect. They were building something unprecedented in galactic history. But the most remarkable changes were happening in the schools. Teacher Jae-Sung Lee now ran an educational exchange program that brought students from dozens of species together to learn from each other. "Today," he announced to a classroom filled with young beings of many different shapes and colors, "we're going to solve a problem that nobody has solved before." The students looked excited rather than worried. Over the past year, they had learned that unsolved problems were opportunities, not obstacles. "The challenge," Jae-Sung continued, "is to design a communication system that can work between beings who think in completely different ways. Humans think in words and images. The crystalline beings think in mathematical equations. The energy beings think in wave patterns. How do we create a language that all of them can use?" For the next hour, students from different species worked together to tackle the challenge. They combined human creativity with alien logic, ancient wisdom with youthful innovation. They failed, learned from their failures, and tried again. At the end of the session, they had not solved the problem completely, but they had made progress that impressed their teachers and created friendships that crossed species lines. The goal, Jae-sung explained to visiting educators from Council Space, is not to give students the right answers. It's to teach them how to find new answers to new questions. As the year anniversary of humanity's refusal approached, the galaxy had stabilized into its new configuration. About half the species remained with the traditional council, preferring the security and predictability of established procedures. The other half had joined the alliance, choosing the uncertainty and opportunity of independent cooperation. Both systems worked in their own ways. The Council maintained stability and order in their space. The Alliance fostered innovation and adaptation in theirs. Trade and communication continued between them, though tension sometimes arose when their different philosophies clashed. Ambassador Tae-ho Kim found himself once again standing before a galactic assembly. But this time, he was not alone on a raised platform facing judges. Instead, he sat at a circular table with representatives from both the Alliance and the Council, working together to address challenges that affected everyone. The important thing, he said during one discussion about trade regulations, is not whether we choose security or freedom. The important thing is that we choose. Every species, every individual should have the right to decide what kind of life they want to live. Chancellor Vexithari, attending via hologram from Council Space, pulsed with softer colors than in the past. Your people have taught us something valuable, Ambassador Kim. Even those of us who chose to remain with traditional systems have learned to question our assumptions more carefully. And we've learned that independence doesn't mean isolation. Tae-ho replied. We can think for ourselves while still working together. As the meeting concluded, Tae-ho looked around at the diverse gathering of beings who had chosen to build something new together. They came from different worlds, thought in different ways, and had different dreams for the future, but they shared something important: the belief that everyone deserved the chance to reach their full potential. The galaxy had offered humanity membership in their civilization. Instead, humanity had invited the galaxy to dream of what civilization could become when every being was free to contribute their unique gifts to the whole. It was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history, written by beings who had learned that the most important question was not, what are we allowed to do, but what can we accomplish together?